Hello. If you like to build stuff by yourself, you probably have a Proxxon or a Dremel multi-tool or grinder, and you know these little cutting discs which come with them, and these are always useful if you have to shorten a screw, a bolt, an electric motor shaft or whatever. But the problem is that these are really small, brittle, they break easily, and if you want to have a tool for any larger job but don't want to use an angle grinder, that would be too big, then these really don't cut it, so to speak. They are simply too small, and well, to replace them all the time it also costs a lot of money, and if they break and fling parts all over your workshop and in your face, that's not too nice as well. So today I will show you how to build these cutting discs by yourself from real industrial grade cutting discs. So what you need is to acquire some of these, and these are the dimensions you have to search eBay or your home improvement store for. The outer diameter is 125 millimeters. They also come in 110 millimeters, I believe, but this would be a little small, so 125 millimeters is really good. This is the thickness. It can be 0.8 or 1 millimeter. I have previously worked with 1 millimeter, as I didn't know that 0.8 existed, but both will work well. So what you need is to get 125 times 0.8. They cost about 2 euros each on eBay, shipping included, so it turns out that we pay about 50 cents per each grinding disc that we will make. So the first thing you do is you make a paper template with more or less exactly 50 millimeter outside diameter and a little hole in the middle. So you can mark exactly 4 grinding discs here, and you need also to show or to mark the center to have the middle afterwards. So after you've marked it, you take the disc to the nearest edge that you have in your workshop, like your workbench, and you simply crack it, you break it along here and along here, so that you get exactly 4 pieces, and each piece will look like this. So what you're doing then, you take some pliers and you break away these edges here. Basically you break away everything that doesn't look like a circle. And it doesn't have to be a really clean job, so a little rough is enough. So this is about adequate. And what you also need, you want to mount it, is a so-called mandrel. This is a part which looks like this, and there you screw the grinding disc on at the top, and the lower end you attach in your mini drill. You want to get the biggest diameter they have. They come in 3.17 and 2 point something millimeter. 2.1 is a bit flimsy, so take the 3 millimeter variant, and also the 3 millimeter screw on top. I personally decided to improve my mandrels a little. This is how mine looks like. It has 5 millimeter diameter at the top, so I threaded 5.0 millimeter metric threading on there, and I screwed on a nut, a flange nut to be precise, with lots of Loctite, and when it was set I simply put it in my Proxxon and I held it against a disc grinder so that the surface here is perfectly rectangular and right angled to the shaft so that the disc doesn't wobble around. And this has some more gripping area here, so it's a little more secure in there. But on normal mandrels it worked just nice for several years for me. So if you don't have the means to do this, you don't need to do it, absolutely. So the next thing you want to do is you got to create a hole in the middle. I don't call it drilling with a clean conscience because drilling involves something sophisticated, and if you use a normal drill to drive it through this material, then the drill will be toast afterwards because, well, this material is made to destroy steel and metal, so the drill will lose its edge after like 2 turns. So what I do is to simply take something that has 3 mm diameter, like this steel wire, and I create some kind of edges, like a pointy pyramid shape at the tip, and then I put it in my mini drill and put a little piece of wood under it and then drive it through, and it's not really pretty, but it works. And after like 5 of these procedures you have to sharpen this one again, but as these last really long, it's not that much of a problem, and you have to deburr it a little afterwards. And of course, before you start making any of this, before you start breaking it, you need to wear some protection glasses, because sometimes little bits get flung off the material when it breaks and when it cracks, and you don't want any of this to be in your eyes, so wear protection glasses all the way while you make them, and of course also while you are cutting with them. So this is how it looks like when it's finished. It's mounted nice and tight on the mandrel, and well, you might ask that it looks really horrible on the outside, not really round, but surprisingly, if you run it with a high RPM, it doesn't really create much of a vibration. And the good thing is, after you used it a little, the edge here will wear down and it will become nice and round, or nicer and rounder every time you use it, until you have a closed edge around it and it is perfectly circular. And this is still a little big and unwieldy, so if you want to cut a tiny wire inside a plane or in some constrained space, then this thing might be too big. So what I advise you, if you used it sometime and it has worn down, like half the diameter, then you start a new one for the big jobs and you save the smaller one for the little jobs where you need a smaller one. So after a while you can kind of build an assortment with different sizes, with different amounts of wear, so that you have the right diameter for every space, for every job you need to do. So here you see an 8 mm steel bolt, which I don't need because it's not metric, and I will now cut this with my newly created grinding disc. This is the very grinding disc you just saw me making, and I've never used it before, so I'll be extra careful on the first cut, because when it's very new it flings sometimes some loose bits from the serrated outer edge in my face, so I don't hold it directly near it. And you can now see that it's pretty rough, and we can compare how it looks after the cut. just heard was my shop vacuum. I always use it because I don't like this kind of dust. And here is the edge, and you see it's much nicer, much cleaner. None of the loose bits we saw before are still there. And yeah, it held up, and we had quite a nice cut. We can see it here, and if I would use this, I would smoothen this by deburring it like this a little, but it's not needed here. So yeah, this is how you make a cutting disc, which looks a little rough at the beginning, but it really lasts you like a year if you use it frequently. So forget trips to the workshop or to the store for always buying new ones of the small kind. This one is the real deal.